Campbell, I'll start with you. You were a big fan of infrastructure in your day. In the army, you were an engineer, so I think it comes with the turf. What did you make of the PM's announcement yesterday and also the follow-up in the speech last night to the BCA? I know it's not sexy, right? I know red tape and green tape aren't sexy, but it's one of the reasons Australia's just not in the competitive mix compared to other investment destinations overseas. What's your assessment?
Well, look, there's a fair bit in this actually. So very, very quickly, great to see some infrastructure funds being released, and we need a whole lot more. I think the government really has, cottoned on to the fact that, I think things are actually pretty bad out there, and I think they're going to get worse into early part of 2020, and we need this sort of spending. I make a quick observation that they were busy yesterday side by side with the Queensland government bailing out a government that doesn't have any money because they haven't managed the finances properly, but I'll move on. Then to your other question about approvals, this is just critically important. In fact, across the whole of government, red tape and bureaucracy is out of control, Peter. When you were there with Tony Abbott, you had a fantastic policy there in the Abbott government where you would remove red tape and regulation, and we know subsequently it's then blossomed, indeed exploded, not just at the Commonwealth level but at the state level. So this is encouraging too. I'm a bit dubious though, a bit sceptical about this digital solution. I hope that's not some public servant sort of idea, because really we've got to go to the fundamentals about what holds up big projects. And the big one that needs to be sorted out is the Environmental Protection Biodiversity Conservation Act of 1997, Commonwealth legislation, which is the deal blocker. It is the destructor of so many great projects in Australia.
Yeah, let's listen to the PM last night on specifically this environmental approval. We're calling it a one-stop shop. I've heard that phrase before. Let's listen to what he specifically said and we'll come back to it.
Environmental approval processes for major projects are overly complex, duplicative, and they take too long. As in other areas, digital technology gives us the opportunity to make these processes faster and simpler. So our government is taking the first step towards nationally consistent digital environmental assessment and approvals regime. We will partner with the Western Australian government to develop a system that will reduce approval times, allow project proponents to submit a single application via a single online portal, track its progress and access a database of biodiversity studies relevant to their project.
Well, Rita, Campbell Newman's making the point that the one-stop shop promised back in 2013 in part happened in that you could lodge your application once and you could log that application in, and in one application would cover off state and federal requirements, right? Really important. But the approval process was also supposed to be a one-stop shop, so that's easily just done between the two levels of government, except it was blocked in the Senate because I rang a minister saying, why on earth are we back over this turf? Didn't we fix it properly? And he said, well, no, in fact, in Malcolm Turnbull's time, he couldn't get it through the Senate, so that's why Scott Morrison's revisiting it. But I said it's not sexy, but it's such an impediment for business.
Oh, it's hugely important for particularly major projects. You have a look at Adani. They've had 10 years of this jumping through hoops. The process is overly complex, it's costly, there are just too many opportunities for activists to impede good projects. I'm not talking about bad ones because we don't want to see anything that's going to destroy the natural environment, but this is vitally important, and it's not just the massive projects like Adani. A lot of smaller projects are also held up, and they, if they can go and do that business elsewhere, why would you subject yourself to our ways, which just throw up hurdle after hurdle before you when you're trying to spend a lot of money to generate jobs and have a business running. So, yeah, it may not be sexy, but I think it is something that people care about because it impacts their lives when they get that job.
Campbell, you made mention of the fact that, it was great to see the PM put this infrastructure money on the table. You made a reference there to some states who are not doing enough. Of course, we're talking there particularly about Queensland. Very interesting report yesterday. I picked up the increase in staff load in the Victorian state government and the Queensland state government. Surprise, surprise, they're both Labor regimes. But Queensland's wage bill blew out by 29% over the last 12 months, and there's been more than 100,000 new staff added over the past 5 years, costing taxpayers in these two jurisdictions an extra $14.5 billion in wages and salaries. This is the problem.
Look, it is an extraordinary non-achievement by those Labor administrations, and you know, I'm not across the detail on the ground in Victoria, of course, wouldn't pretend to, but here in Queensland, you can't point to improved outcomes. Indeed, one of the things the Labor Party have done ever since they saw me booted out is they've gone on with a narrative that Newman cut things. Well, yeah, we cut, we didn't cut frontline services, and we actually, through management, better management, improved the performance of the hospitals, ended ambulance ramping, you know, put more police on the beat. So more money, a greater headcount doesn't fix problems in government. It doesn't improve outcomes. It can, but it doesn't necessarily follow. Sadly, and I'll have a go at the Fourth Estate, so many people in the media seem to get conned by announcements about more staff, more money equals better outcomes, and it's just simply not true.
No, and they don't get the difference between frontline services and bloat, right? And a lot of this is bloat.
It is bloat, and we can't afford it in Queensland.
It's the same in Victoria. It's not the nurses and the teachers and the police officers. It's not the frontline services. It is the bureaucracy that is growing at an alarming rate, and that is going to cost us billions every year going forward. It's not a one-off cost. It's not like a project. It is an ongoing wages bill that the taxpayers are going to have to somehow come up with, and they're already, the budget is tightening down here in Victoria.
Well, let's talk